Hi, and welcome to the Uplift with Dabney Brice, the podcast where we'll elevate global stories by shining a spotlight on underrepresented narratives, educating ourselves about current and historical events and diverse cultures and communities. Let's journey together to step outside our comfort zones, uplift each other, and make the world a little bit better along the way. Welcome, my uplifters. It's your girl, Dabney Brice. Now, you don't get to choose your family, but you do get to choose your friends. And so on this episode, I'm joined by my best friends, Chelsea, Kacie, Angel, and Sarah. We'll be talking about our 6.5-year friendship and how race has played a role in our relationship with each other. Oftentimes we hear a lot about interracial dating relationships and marriages, but not so much about interracial friendships and why those are just as important in order for our society to progress. So let's dive in and let's get started. Hi, people. We got my friends here. What about your friends? I don't know if I can sing that.
Copyright.
But that's the title of the episode is What About Your Friend?
Well, there you
TLC.
go.
Shout out to TLC.
Love TLC.
They the best. I'm gonna introduce y'all. So we got Sarah, we got Chelsea, we got Angel, and we got Kacie, the home crew. These are my girls.
Yes.
They're like my forever friends. Like I've already said, like if I get married one day, like they're bridesmaids, like they're like, we've all laughed, we've cried, we've argued with each other, we've screamed into the void with each other. We watch reality TV together.
Except me.
Except Kacie.
We're working on it.
And Sarah, because, we're getting there. By the end of 2021, everyone will be watching The Bachelor.
No.
I'm okay.
I'm really good. It's a nice
good.
thought, but no.
But I introduced y'all, but can y'all just say hi? Each one of you say hi to the listeners. I don't know. You can say whatever you want, really. You can start with Sarah.
Sweet. Hi, my name is Sarah. I'm 25 years old. I have a dating profile hey, my name is Sarah. I'm Peruvian American. I have a mom and a dad, and I live with them. And I have a younger sibling. Her name is Jamie. She's 15, and she's awesome. I met all of these gals in college, and then that's it. I don't know what else to say. We'll talk more.
Yeah, I'll talk about how we met too.
Cool.
How we all kind of met. All right, Chelsea.
Okay, yeah. My name is Chelsea. I am from the Philly region. I live and work there currently. I am a white person, a white lady. This is all about interracial stuff, so that's important. It's always important. And I guess I'll kind of follow Sarah's lead. I have 3 siblings who I love a lot, and my mom, I was raised by a single mother, and I was a first-generation college student, so that was very important to my experience and has a lot to do with how I met all 4 of the other lovely people on this podcast. And I really am excited to, in the fall, start a public health program. So that's kind of what I'm looking to right now.
Shout out to her. She got into all her schools, pretty much. You're still waiting
almost
for one.
there. Yeah, almost there. Yeah. So that's
at the time of this recording, she will. She's smart.
Right.
Yeah, big brained.
Thanks, y'all. Yeah. So that's my big COVID life move, is that I'm not letting COVID hold me back from grad school.
Hi, my name's Angel. I'm 24.
I love all these
I'm Korean, but I was adopted as a baby by white parents. Also a first-gen college student, as Chelsea said. I have 2 older siblings, and a niece and nephew. And
Sweet. All right. Good times. Last but not least, Miss Kacie.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Kacie. I'm 25 years old. Why is that funny?
It just feels like those old like 90s dating videos.
Like eHarmony or something.
Is that what
Yeah.
this actually is? Is
Like,
this actually,
Yeah.
like, this podcast is like for all of us. We're all single. So.
Well, I was about to say, I was like, all of us are single. So like,
Yeah, I'm 25. I'm currently living in the Philly area. I've been here for 2.5 years. I just graduated with my master's in the spring, and I've been working in public health for the last few months, and I really love it. I am a white lady. Bold move of you all to let 2 white ladies into the friend group, but like I'm happy you did. I love you all.
just to, like a little background, like, yeah, we all met at Lehigh University. We were the same year, freshmen together. I met Sarah, Chelsea, and Angel through the first gen program called Lucy. It was Lehigh University Summer Scholars Institute. And I met Kacie through Chelsea because they were roommates their freshman year. And like throughout the years, like I always find it funny because I was an RA and Angel was too, but not towards the end. But like they've always lived with each other. And like I was always like the honorary roommate, like the other to the point where people thought like people were, I feel like, really confused with the 5 of us sometimes because they're just like, I never lived with you. Like the only time we lived in the same like area was our senior year, and then I left early, so it was half a year anyway. And then I went abroad. Chelsea went abroad. It's a whole like thing. I always found that funny, but yeah, like we've made it through. We've known each other almost like 6.5 years. About 6.5 years, which is wild.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Wild. We're old. But yeah, I'm here, like we're here just to talk about like interracial friendships. Like as I said, like we're all different races. Like Sarah's Peruvian, she's Latina. Chelsea and Kacie are white, and Angel is Korean. But like she said, she was adopted, so she has like a different experience from the rest of us as well. But before like we get into like the questions that I have, we're like about our relationship and our friendship and how we see interracial friendship, I do want to read some like stats that I found. I did my research, and I mean, granted, we're doing great. We're doing.
I'm super interested though to like know more about what you found.
Yeah, and I'll put the like what I found in the episode notes so that people can do like their like continue to do their own research.
Yes,
but according
sources.
sources, cite your sources, y'all. According to a 2013 Pew Research Center's American Value Survey, about 75% of white adults have entirely white circles, like literally not a single person of color in their friend circles. And when I want to like clarify, when I mean friends, I mean like friends. I'm not talking about the person you sit next to at work. I'm not talking to like
important
pre-COVID times, like someone that you see in class or that you're walking on the street and you're like, you talk occasionally to, or you only have, they're only your work buddy. I'm talking about like people you do life with, that know you deeply. And like I said, like these girls are going to be in my wedding someday, like people that you may consider to be in your wedding. But even if you don't have, whether or not like, no matter what your social circle looks like right now, like please continue to listen. Like, so if you don't have a really wide or diverse group of friends, please listen, because I'll ask about like how you can actually make more friends and make more diverse friend groups without it being like awkward, like, and like, hi, you're Black, like, can you be my friend? Like, no.
Don't do
You want to be besties. Let's be friends.
Do not do that. So there's that. And then there was another study that I found. This one photographer, he examined interracial friendships in the US by looking at 1,000 photographs of wedding parties, because people tend to like reserve spaces in their wedding parties for their closest, like their true friends. And he found that he only looked at white, Asians, and Black people. So there is more people that are left out. But white people and Asians are more likely to have people that look like them in their wedding parties. But Black people are more likely to include white people and Asians in their wedding parties. So yeah, those are the stats. I guess I wanted to have this conversation with you guys because like we've talked about like race with each other in general, but I don't think we've ever talked about it in the context of like our own friendship that much. So why not do it for the public to see as well?
Absolutely.
Got it. Bless the people with our thoughts.
Exactly. And like in general, like the reason behind like the lack of interracial friendships in this country at large has a lot to do with like racially segregated schools, neighborhoods, workplaces, which is still the case to this day. And just because segregation ended in the 1960s does not mean that segregation actually ended. In fact, schools and neighborhoods are more segregated now than they were back then. So that's food for thought. But we all tend to just draw towards people who look like us, think like us, act like us. And so like how do we like move past that? How do we sort of open ourselves up to that? So to start off, I would love for you guys to answer like what has been your history / like journey when it comes to race and diversity within your friend groups. So like where have you been to like where you are now?
Okay, so I grew up in a pretty much like all white community, and everyone in my family is pretty much white, except for my brother-in-law. So up until, college, until I was 18, everyone that I knew was white. So all of my friends were white. And like I never really interacted or was friends with anyone that like either looked like myself or like any other race until I went to college and met you lovely people. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That is my history with friendships. So like all of my closest friends from high school are obviously white.
Yeah, I feel that. I understand. Like I'm pretty much in the same boat as
Me
you,
too.
Angel, just because like I moved to a mostly white neighborhood when I was pretty much starting school, like after kindergarten. I started first grade, where my parents live right now. And like most of my friends were white growing up. And then also because I was in advanced classes, and we could talk about like the education system and why I was the only Black kid in a lot of those classes. A lot of the other kids in like the room were white. And then there was like some Asian kids as well. So it wasn't really like outside of my family and like family friends, like people I grew up with. I didn't really have a lot of friends outside. Well, I guess it's like really weird. I feel like because I'm Black, right? So I've always had to have interracial friendships. Like whether or not that was intentional or not, it was kind of like, and I feel like Angel, like you're in the same boat too. Like because our neighborhood, we were the minorities, like we didn't have a choice but to have interracial friendships.
Yeah.
So yeah, and we can go into that further on, but yeah, everyone else, what about the rest of y'all?
I can also relate with Dabney and Angel, mainly with the school that I would eventually go into like for middle and high school. So it was like like private majority white school until like it dwindled down to where most white kids left. And then it just became like a few white people. And then since the school was located in like the not rich white neighborhoods like most private schools were, it ended up just being the people around, the kids of color who like were there for because they could attend the school. So like for mine, it was like dwindled down to when I first started at school. Like when I would go to the school, it would just be a whole bunch of white kids and then a few Black or Latino kids there. And then I think at one point there's no Asian people there at all for like a while. And then I would go back home and I'd be surrounded with lots of Latino influences and Peruvian influences. So I like the idea of growing up with like both type experiences. And then when I get to college, I knew that I needed to still continue that because of course I can't escape being friends with white people. It's not something that I wanted to, but it was just more of like, of course, I need a diverse group of friends. It cannot just be the same type. and then I met you guys. You guys liked me, so it was like, yes. And then I'm still here. So, yeah.
And you're still here.
Nobody kicked me out yet, so which is good.
There's no time limit to this friendship.
Actually, we're having a vote next month. We're gonna like kick somebody out.
Yeah.
Ooh. So I think of all of us, I think Angel and I might have the most maybe similar backgrounds in terms of like the demographics of where we grew up, because we both grew up in different parts of Pennsylvania, but still really rural, predominantly white areas. So that was very much the case for me. There was minimal to no like racial, ethnic, religious diversity where I'm from. So that very much shaped who my friends were and who I had options to be friends with. I had a few friends of different races in high school, but those were like maybe the handful of people who were non-white who went to our school. So I did have one or two close friendships of people of different racial backgrounds than myself before college, but Lehigh was definitely the most diverse place I had ever been in my life, which is saying something because all of us know like Lehigh is not a diverse institution. It's a predominantly white institution. But I'm sure Angel and maybe even Dabney can relate to as well, like because of where we come from, like for many of us, it was like a dramatic shift in terms of diversity and who was in our classes and living in our dorms. So I just remember being really overwhelmed in a good way about that. Like I was so excited. And maybe I've just always had a very open curiosity to meet people from different backgrounds than myself. But I remember being so excited to just meet people who had really different life experiences than me. But also being surprised, I guess, that there were people who thought my background could be interesting too, like coming from a rural area, and that I brought something to the table too, I guess. But yeah, then I met all of you guys, and the rest is history.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I interestingly had like a really opposite experience from the four of you growing up right outside of Philly in the lovely suburb of Cheltenham. There was like diversity of every kind. So a lot of racial, ethnic, religious, socioeconomic diversity in like, I think the town might be around like 30,000 people. And so that was really like normalized for me growing up. I had a lot of like, I can think of my soccer team and like how on my soccer team we would play like other suburbs, and we just knew like as we got further and further away from the city, like the teams were whiter and whiter and like we were not. And that was always something that was really like an interesting dynamic that played out, but we were just like used to that. And yeah, so I think for me, I've experienced a process of kind of contextualizing a lot of the things I like experienced growing up and like in my community, the things I observed in my community versus like my intellectual head knowledge of like why these things were the way that they were. And that definitely was helped through some like different scholarship and like advising opportunities that I had. I always found myself in a room of like other underrepresented students for a variety of reasons. And so for me, that looked like being first generation, coming from a single parent household, being like relatively low income. But that would put me in the room with other students who were there for a variety of like other kind of intersectional reasons, which could be being a student of color in a predominantly white space or coming from an immigrant household, and like looking at those as barriers to achievement in especially education. And I just took that for granted. I was like, okay, I'm like maybe the only white person in the room. Cool, that's fine. And I didn't realize until college like how little like exposure other white people get to that sort of thing, and like how much it matters that I like speak up as an ally and share that experience with my fellow white people, but also in general with people in college who come from a lot of different backgrounds. So I think I would say definitely in high school, like a lot of my friends were still white. Like I came from a really diverse school, but I didn't have those like deep doing life connections with people who are not white. And I think partially I was just so like hell-bent on getting to college that I didn't like make a lot of time to really invest in friendships in general. But once I got to college, I was like, that was the time I was going to like, yeah, succeed in my academics, but also like make those lifelong friends. That was part of the vision. And that definitely contributed to me jumping into like the first people that I, did meet. And that was through the Lucy Summer program. And so like one scholarship program led to another, and all of those, I think, access opportunities speak to, like I already mentioned, just a lot of the different barriers that prevent students from achieving that sort of success. So interestingly, I think I've experienced in college a lot of like reflecting and seeing like, yes, my township was like, we're so diverse, but like things were not equal. And really understanding that I was colorblind in the bad way, where it was like, oh, racism's done, we're fine, like there was civil rights, everything's okay. But like I never really stopped to have a quality conversation with like students of color at my school to really understand what that experience was like. And if I could go back in time, wow, I would, because there was so much there to really learn from. But that just like wasn't where I was, and I didn't have others in my life who were really calling that out for me. And so that's been my process of like putting those puzzle pieces together on like the back end of things. And I'm just really grateful to be able to do that in like an intellectual way, but also in an experiential way, like with my friends. Like that was never a question. I think like what Kacie said too, like I've always just loved meeting different people in general. That I think is just something I'm always curious about people. So that it was never like I had to think hard about it, like, oh, what race is this friend? It was like, you're a really cool person, be my friend. And then it went from there. It was always really organic.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point that you said, because it's like all about intentionality. I think that's the difference between like how we're all raised and like post high school, and even like post college. Like how are we intentional about our friendships? Like in high school and growing up, like you don't really have a choice about who you're surrounded by and like the makeup of who you're surrounded by. And so that was like a really like big thing for me going into Lehigh, especially because like a lot of things happened growing up in my town and being Black in my town. I won't get into details, but you can assume a lot of things. And it's not that I don't have close friends from high school. Like I still talk to a few people, or I check in with a few people who are great. But like, I remember leaving high school just being like, just to be honest, if we're going to be honest here, at least with white people in general, I was kind of just like tired, just so exhausted. And I made it my goal coming into Lehigh to be intentional about the people that I surrounded myself with and like the friends that I made. It didn't mean that I wouldn't have white friends, because obviously like I have white friends.
Thanks,
You're welcome.
Exactly too.
But I guess like to finish up my like earlier thought too, like I was just very intentional about who I surrounded myself and my friendships and making sure that they understood. So I found this quote from a poem by Pat Parker called "For the White Person Who Wants to Know How to Be My Friend." But I feel like it also applies to like non-Black people too, because again, like as we're learning like from this past year, or as like I would say as white people are learning from this one, is that people of color are not, we all have different experiences, being Black, Latina, Asian, Indigenous. Like we all have our, like we all have like a common thing that like racism sucks, and like we all experience that, but we still experience racism in different ways. And then like I'm not even gonna get into like colorism, because like your shade determines like your interactions. But
so many.
I feel like this also applies to like for the non-Black person who wants to be my friend too. But one of the lines says, the first thing you do is forget that I'm Black, and second, you must never forget that I'm Black. And so that was really important to me in making friends that were outside of my race, was that like they understood where I stood when it comes to like my Blackness. And like, if you can't say Black Lives Matter, we're going to have, it may be a little bit more difficult. Obviously, I would love to have a discussion with you about why, but like, I don't know if I would consider you my like close friend then. But also to like don't forget that I'm Black too. Like, don't like try to like, don't be colorblind around me at the same time. Like, don't be too much in my face that I'm Black, but like, don't forget that I'm Black at the same time.
Yeah. Sorry, I just wanted to say that for most of the friendships that I've had, that's unknowingly me being like, just don't focus on their race, but also don't forget that that's them and that's a part of their identity. So I was just like, damn, I completely agree with that quote.
Yeah. It's a pretty like intense poem. I'll still link it. It's like, that's why I only read one line. It's a pretty intense poem. But I encourage everyone to read it and reflect on it. For you, because of how you grew up, like being like raised by white people, surrounded by white people mainly, but like, how has your experience differed, and like what are things that you had to like break down or like break through when it came to people outside of your race, but more specifically out of like white people in general, because that's like how you like, that's the culture you were raised in, if that makes sense.
Something interesting, which I'm sure like Dabney, you and Sarah probably have, might have both experienced growing up mainly around white people. A lot of like my friends and people from high school would be like, oh, Angel, like you're basically white. Like I like forget that you're even Asian. And I would always be like, oh yeah, like because like, I don't know, white was like synonymous with, I guess, like American culture in my head at that time, back in high school and, even younger. And so I think being able to like be friends with non-white people and even with people like of my own race, because like that wasn't what I was used to. And that was definitely something that I like sought in college, is to like be friends with people that actually look like me, which is not the point of this podcast. We're talking about interracial, but I think even beyond that, like I was looking for like just diversity. So I guess like realizing that I guess it was just at the time, like being called white was like not something that bothered me. But I think looking back, like I was always very aware of the fact that like I was not white, and I was always like really insecure about that. And honestly, like I hated being Asian growing up. Like I always like wished I was white, like, pretty much probably until like I got to college and like was able to meet people that looked like me and like that were diverse. And so yeah, I guess just like getting past just realizing that like whiteness is not really the same as like American culture, or like realizing that it's just like now I'm like, okay, cool, it's cool that I'm Asian and I like want to learn more about my culture. Yeah, I don't know if that answers your question either.
No, you did. You did. I relate to you a lot because like, first of all, like you're awesome.
Right.
You're
Second.
Asian beauty. And like I understand that like exactly. Like I think for me growing up, I was also told like, oh, like you're an Oreo, like, or like you're not Black, like you're Haitian, which was always weird to me because I was like, there are white Haitians, but like,
have you seen her?
Like, have you seen? Like, I was like, what are you talking about? And I think they meant like you're not like African American Black, which is like, that's a whole nother conversation about like there's different types of Blackness. But I think when I got to Lehigh is like when I truly started to define what Blackness meant for me, and like how do I make sure that that's being honored in my relationships outside of being around Black people, and even being around like outside, like because I'm Haitian on top of it too, so like that's a whole nother, like being first gen, being the child of immigrants, and like Sarah like understands that a little bit more too, but making sure that that's honored in my friendships, no matter who I come across, and that like I'm not decreasing or like devaluing who I am for certain people. So like I think that's why I've always like appreciated our friendship between the five of us in general, just because like none of us like I don't know, we just like clicked really quickly, and like obviously we've had our ups and downs. We're not perfect. None of us are perfect. And we're like, I love that we can call each other out and like have these serious topics. But that's something that's why like when I tell people like who are my friends, like these are my friends. And I have friends outside of them, but like these are my best
What?
friends. I know.
What?
Wow, right?
Oh my God.
Who are they?
How dare I have
I
friends?
will find them and we will fight.
Are some of them men? What?
What?
I'm kidding. I'm joking. I'm trying to make it joke.
Yeah, so like Angel, I feel you. And thanks y'all for not being like those people.
I just
Sarah,
want to retrospectively like go back and not bully. I want to be mean to the people who were mean to my friends in high school, and like also give you guys, young Dabney and Angel, like
hugs. Yeah, it's like,
be like, don't listen to these fools.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's like no one ever said it like in a mean way per se, but like I think it's just obviously like when white people are only around white people, like not saying that they don't know any better, but
but they don't.
Like, yeah, they don't, and like that's
lot
a problem.
Of ignorance.
Yeah.
And ignorance can still be harmful.
Yeah, like it's still like impactful. Like those are things you'll never forget, unfortunately. Like,
yeah,
and they shaped you in some way, shape, or form. And they like they frame how you like make friends, and they frame how you talk to people, how you are with people, even whether that's like consciously or not. But I guess to like continue on, like I would love to know, like for Sarah, all of you, but I want Sarah to start off. I guess to talk more about like how you see our friendship in general, but also like what are some of like the hardest parts of being in interracial friendships in general for you as a Latina?
Yeah. I think if my parents ever always walk in and like want to say hi, I kind of have to translate. But not my mom. Mom speaks great English. Usually my dad will be like, no, I'm not here. And I'll be like, just say something. And then he'll try his best. I think that's the biggest part. I also would say, and not in terms of being a token Latina, but my Latino households would be different from a stereotypical Latino. There are a few that come up in my head, but just being like, this is a look into my life as being a Latina who's like a lot different from the people on the internet or people that you meet in your life. And I feel like that stems from when I was growing up and going into that private school. And the way that I was first getting into that private school was with different after school programs. The main one, Reach Prep, just really drilling it into my head that where my situation is and how the world is going to treat me, and how I have to, what tools can this program give me to like strengthen and to, like go into the world prepared for how cool it can be. That also combines with like my own parents being like, you have to work twice as hard your entire life because you're a woman and you're a woman of color and you live in this country. So it's I've always been aware of like, I am the diverse one. I am like the different one. When I go to different places or when I go to school, like I am, first of all, I'm small. So like I'll walk around like
Sarah's very tiny. If you ever
Sarah is the smallest friend.
Yes.
I'm under 5 foot.
Chelsea is the tallest friend.
I am tall.
Anyways, not that I don't love being small or whatever. Love yourself, whatever. I think from my own background in terms of diversity, I've always been put into programs to help me understand that there are different types of people out there and there are different types of friends. And, to just try to really push that in me, which I'm super grateful for, and understand like there are resources to help you because of the privileges that I don't and do have. So it was really nice actually to have that be drilled into my head, even with private school, understanding that, oh yeah, the majority of everybody here is white, and then there's like the two friends that are Latino, and the one black girl who's my friend. Like all of this was kind of like, and then I went to college, and then I saw Lehigh, and I was like, oh yes, of course this is majority white people. Let me try to find where the diverse people are. Let me try to find where the people of color are. Just so I have that link, because if I continue with like majority white, it's not going to be good for my own mental health. I feel like I don't really know. I just I've always struggled with like, yes, I'm Latino, but that wasn't. It was more like being Peruvian. Like that was my thing of like, this is Peruvian culture. This is a culture that I don't really see in mainstream media or mainstream like friends. Like this is Peruvian culture, and of course it has same ties with Latino culture.
Yeah, I feel that too, because like I think especially with like Black and brown people tend to put us into like a monolith, like, oh, you're like Latinx or you're Black / African American. It's like, yes, and I'm also Haitian, and so that there's another like component to it. And I guess like from you, like what I've learned from you is like a lot more about Peruvian culture, and like your family and how like that's different from all the other countries in like South and Central America and the Caribbean. And I think like also like what you were saying, like you're not the typical like Latina like that people see on the internet or on TV. Like, yeah, like you're a Latina that loves K-pop and like anime and like games, and like that's cool.
And just the fact that I had to say Latino, like Latino stereotype, and it's like we're so diverse. Like it's just I don't really have a big family. The majority of them are either in Peru or they're just we don't really talk
in your house.
In my family,
they all live
like
in your house.
Latino family that I consider my family they all live in my house. Like, we're like 5 people. That's it. We're not like a huge, because we usually just work on each other and rely on each other. One of the things growing up was like listening to Latino music, like reggaeton or bachata, or even all the other things. Like that's not. If I go to school and someone dares to be like, hey, do you know this song? And it's all in Spanish. And I'm like, no, I don't listen to that. Someone just bought me a Taylor Swift album. Like, no. Just because and then I'm like, am I supposed to listen to it? I don't not like it. I love it now. It's fine. But it's not like on my go-to playlist, like little things, or novelas. I didn't grow up watching novelas. I grew up watching like Channel 12 News, Connecticut. I grew up watching like Cartoon Network, like and like what I have now, and like I'm very fortunate and blessed to live with my family now. So just the fact that we have a really comfortable home. My mom and dad worked hard for this home. They worked hard. They're immigrant families. They really drive that into be like, we want you to be the best. Not like number one, because like we worked really hard to build this home for you, and of course you're super grateful. So it's just those little things of like, this is an example of an immigrant family, an example of first generation Latino, and then
yeah, thanks for sharing. That's I guess okay, my next question is for everybody, but like how has our relationship between the 5 of us challenged you? I can start off. So like one of the things that I've learned in interracial friendships in general, but like especially with ours, is like where my boundaries are when it comes to even like talking about race. Because it's like, and that's like how I know like the difference between like people that are like really close to me and like know me versus the people that like they only get one side of me, or like they don't know like me deeply. Especially after like this summer when I'm telling you, like, I know some of them are probably listening too, but I appreciate them. I still love you. People came out of the woodworks. People came out of the woodworks to talk about like George Floyd and like racism in this country. And like, that's something that I especially that summer, I had to learn how to navigate. Like, who am I going to respond to when it comes to talking about like, and just say thank you? No, well, to actually like have a discussion, and who am I going to like actually just be like, thank you, and move forward. Because it's like, it's so exhausting. It's a part of my daily life in general. So like, where are those boundaries? And I think like, not just when it comes to like racism, but also like Black culture things as well. Because sometimes like I have like my Black friends, and like I'll go talk about like Black culture stuff with them and like laugh and like have a great time. It doesn't mean that I don't talk to you guys about it. Sometimes I like the Gorilla Glue girl, like that all started with Black Twitter.
Backstory.
Because this is how Black Twitter works. It's like, it starts off with Black Twitter, and like for a weekend it was just within Black Twitter, and then during this week it like became viral to everyone in the world. And so yeah, like I figured there'd be the time where it's like, oh, I wonder if my white friends do know about, like my non-Black friends, like, do they know about Gorilla Glue girl? So when you woman,
far.
so when Kacie was like, all the news what is this? Do you know about this? I was like, yeah. And I like sent them a whole Snapchat video with my reaction and thoughts.
Yeah, it was very helpful.
Yeah, it was interesting. 2021, man. But yeah, there's certain things that's like, I may not go to you guys first, especially when it comes to Black culture things. Cause like, there may be things that like, I don't even know if like you would care about, if that makes sense. Not that you wouldn't care about, but it's like, you probably wouldn't get it, or like, why is it so funny? Like, it will take you a lot longer to be like, oh, like, why is it so funny? Even though I know that like y'all would care, if that makes sense, because I care. So yeah, just that's how like this friendship has challenged me, is like learning where my boundaries are, and like also learning to like where to show grace and where to challenge you more, where to be like, okay, and then where to be like, maybe think about it differently. So yeah, continue. Someone please take it off my hands now. How has our friendship challenged you?
I'll take the reins. I think for me, it's actually thinking about the social injustice issues even more, because especially when like Kacie talks about it, or when it's brought up by other members of the group. It's just kind of like, yeah, like that happens because I've lived through it, like I've experienced that. And then when Black Lives Matter came up, since unfortunately I don't have too many Black friends, so that's when I was like, not the like of course, but also like a disappointed of course, and like shocked but not really shocked. I'm just kind of like so it's challenged me to think more of just not because you live through it every day, and you see those things way too often, and they just keep coming up and up and up, and you're just kind of like, yep, that's what happens. And for me, that was being taught to try to fight all that is for like focusing on yourself and going against like this poverty cycle, and like really trying to fight through all the like injustices to like really bring up your whole family with you. But it's challenged me to think more of like people on the outside looking in, and other people's experiences from my own, because of course they're not the same as everybody's. So it's really taught me to again see through it, especially like injustice things and issues, to talk about it. And like I just like listening most of the time, because it's like, whoa. So
I'll piggyback off of Sarah. Yeah, I think something that's really challenged me, like when thinking about race, is thinking about how other races experience racism in America, and just real, and like not only racism but colorism, as we've kind of mentioned before, but like there's, you know, an uptick in Asian American hate crimes in the US, and I've been really thinking about, like, you know, how maybe like how Asian people are probably feeling more scared to like go about their daily lives, and then like kind of connecting that back to like, you know, how Black people in America probably feel like that like every day of their lives, since the beginning of time, or since the beginning of the US. And so I think just thinking like a little bit more deeply about how other races and minorities in America experience racism, and thinking more about this whole idea of like model minorities with Asian people.
I can jump in. I think of a lot of things. I think just in general, like coming into college with that intentionality of like wanting deep friendships, I think set the stage, and just like a different level of willingness to like be vulnerable and also be that shoulder to lean on for other people. And that, yeah, like looking back on that and seeing that, I think has really, that really set the foundation for kind of how I view our friendships. I can think of some like really, really big examples, and then really small specific ones too. Like I think, Dabney, what you said about boundaries, I absolutely feel challenged by our friendships in that way, and like in the opposite way, to know that like when I'm working on my anti-racism kind of self, like that is not stuff that I should be processing with my friends of color, because like that's not helpful, that's harmful, and that like kind of recreates trauma. And so learning to walk the really fine line of like just having my friends, like really mostly white friends, who like I would process these kind of things I'm thinking through, like, okay, white fragility, like what else, processing those with the people who are white and not processing them with my friends of color, like respecting that boundary, I think is really important. And but also being just like really reading the conversation, and knowing that like we've already kind of committed to like this friendship of a lifetime, right? And that's really special. And like there will be so much time for us all to keep learning about each other and like digging into these questions. And I think kind of when we all graduated, I guess I always felt like everybody, you know, was like slipping out of my fingers, and like we were going to be in all these different places, and that felt really scary. And I definitely felt this urge to like try harder to like make the connection deeper and like even more solid. But rather than forcing like really deep heart to heart conversations about like every kind of issue that comes up or something, just letting the conversations happen. And like that doesn't mean to not be intentional, but I've learned that it means to sometimes like let others share when they want to, but also not to ignore what's happening in the world, and be willing to like check in, like be willing for that answer to be like, actually, I don't want to talk right now. And to know that that doesn't mean like I'm a terrible friend. That just means like we're all going to process individually. So I think that that's a way that I've been challenged. And it took me a long time, I think, to kind of like learn. And I'm still like learning to like see like the wisdom in like what that really looks like to live that out.
I have tried to challenge myself to always be doing the work on my end, to be more informed about like races and cultures that are not my own, because I know when I'm in interracial friendships, like I never want it to be like, it's like about a delicate balance, you know, because you're always going to be learning from each other and learning from your friends, and your loved ones who have different experiences than you, and that's great and like a benefit to these kinds of friendships. But I also like, you guys should never be the only people in like places where I'm learning from. Like I've always tried to be really conscious of doing that work on my own end. And like, yeah, I mean, especially, okay, so take the Black Lives Matter movement, and especially the way that's really kind of amped up in the last year. Like it is my job to like be informed and educate myself and critique my own biases and do that own self-reflection without like specifically like dragging Dabney like inappropriately like into any of that to like help me. Like that is not her job. Like that, again, boundaries like that would be inappropriate and like not me being a good friend. So yeah, that just extends to a lot of things. Like you're all people I care about, so the things that impact your lives, like I need to be learning more about too, outside of just like the conversations that naturally come up. um I've been challenged but like very appreciative of like any accountability, like not just of issues like around like race and racism, but like all things. Like we have really great accountability with each other of being like, hey, it was hurtful when this was said, or I need you guys to understand this about me or how I think. Like I feel like we're all always very receptive of that, and do a good job of like when those things are brought up once, like we remember, um, which I think is really cool. Yeah, I'm thinking of one example in particular, like when we were all in DC visiting Dabney, um, and we were like walking somewhere, and like it came up like a neighborhood or like an area we were walking through, like uh, some of us were calling it like sketchy or something. I genuinely think about this interaction all the time because I remember after the fact, Dabney being like, hey, like you guys, like I'm sure like you didn't have bad intentions here, but just so you know, like it can be hurtful like to hear like a neighborhood or an area called sketchy, because a lot of times there's not a lot of times, there always is like undertones, like where does that word come from, why are words like sketchy, or I don't think any of us would ever like call a place ghetto, but like words like that have meaning, and when they're applied to a place, like they're applied in a very specific way, and those words usually mean like black, low income, etc. And when we use those words, even if we don't maybe have ill intentions, like those places are still someone's home, and like people grow up and go to school and raise their families in those places, so like using those words are not cool. And you like held us all accountable and like brought that up and told us that, and I genuinely think about that all the time. And I guess maybe now that I'm thinking about it, this is another way like having interracial friendships have challenged me. Like I take to heart like whatever is shared with me, and I try and implement that in my own life as well. And now like ever since that conversation happened, I like hold the people around me to a really high standard too, and I'm very quick to call people out for using those words to describe a neighborhood. And whenever I let like an opportunity like that go by where I don't call someone out, like it eats me up afterward. And like, nope, like that wasn't cool. Like I know the importance of this because it's important to my friends. So like I need to do better.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's one of like, again, why I love our friendship so much is because like, even though all of you guys are conscious about like specifically like for me, like being Black and like conscious about like what do like not to go to Dabney for like you're growing and you're learning, you're still very like welcoming and like open when I need to talk about it, and like learning like it's always like a weird like tiptoeing thing, because like sometimes it's like, at least for me, sometimes you're like, I want someone to notice without me having to bring it up, but also I don't, like there's other times where it's like it's so noticeable that's like don't bring it up. Like I know, like so like that's something that I'm learning for myself. Is just like when, for example, when Angel and Chelsea and I went to Ithaca, like we were watching This Is Us, and like I remember getting like super quiet because it was a particular like it was an episode where they were talking about like George Floyd and like how, spoiler, it's not really spoiler, but like how Randall like felt, like how his family, because he was adopted in a white family, and like how they never really had those discussions around him. And I don't really know, like I just remember getting really quiet and just being like, hey, like I'm just thinking about it because it's on my TV screen and I can't not think about it. And like we went to a conversation about like how I sort of walk around in my daily life. But yeah, Angel and Chelsea were just like, yeah, we're here. Like, we're here to listen whenever you want to. Like, we don't ever want to force you to talk about it. So yeah, that's something that I have to think about on my end. It's like learning when to say something and when to like, because sometimes I don't. Sometimes like, sometimes someone will say something, not you guys specifically, but like, and just like, do I want to deal with this today? It's like, I'm just going to continue. And that's okay. That's okay. But I guess to continue forward, before my last like serious questions to you guys, I want to give a resource for people. But there's a book called Big Friendship by Aminatou So and Anne Friedman. Aminatou is Black and Anne is a white woman. And they wrote a book about their friendship. And it's not just about interracial friendship, but it's also about like the full title is Big Friendship, how we keep each other close. So it's also about like how they've navigated friendship as adults, and particularly for those that may be like graduating from college and you're like, how do I stay friends with my friends, or like how do I make friends? It's not easy, but like that's a resources you got, like you could look into. But there was an excerpt on like from this article that talked about like how Anne invited Aminatou to someone's birthday party. And when Aminatou showed up, she was the only Black woman. The rest of the people at this party were white. And like again, I'll put the link in the episode notes, but I encourage everyone to at least like read that excerpt, buy the book, because I've heard really great things about the book. I haven't read it myself, but I do plan to. And they had like how Aminatou had to like, she had to like decide whether or not she was going to bring it up because it made her uncomfortable. Just like, and they were friends for years. So like they've had discussions about race. And so in her head, she's like, why am I the only Black person? Why am I the only person of color at this party? If we've had this conversation, like how have you not like diversified your friend group, or at least warn me to let me know that like I would be the only Black person? Again, I'm paraphrasing, so you should definitely read it. But I'm sure there's a lot of people that are listening that are like, but I don't have any friends outside of my, like, people that I'm close with that are not white. So how do I become friends with people that are not white? So like my question for you guys is like, what tips do you have for someone that is looking to diversify their social circle and to create like meaningful relationships?
I think it's so challenging because there's an element to it that is, at least in my experience, has been like circumstantial. You know, like if I had not done Lucy, I think about it a lot. Like I really do wonder, I guess like Kacie probably would have still been my first friend. But other than that, like, would I have met you guys, or how would my friend group look if I hadn't had that first interaction with you guys specifically? And so I guess taking advantage of, on one hand, the opportunities that present themselves when you are given the opportunity, and this is really challenging in a COVID world, of course, but when given the opportunity to be in rooms with people who look different from you. And this is not even just to like find non-white friends, like just in general, I think it's common that we gravitate to people who are like us. So in general, however you're trying to diversify your friend group, yeah, just taking the opportunity to be in spaces where you know you can interact with people who are different from you. But yeah, the intentionality is really important because you can't just rely on like coincidence and circumstance. If we all relied on that, none of us would ever step out of our comfort zones. And so you have to seek that kind of stuff out, like whether it's through, and in our like time of life, I guess, you know, I'm 24, like I'm currently working at a nonprofit. And so in this young professional world, I've tried to do that through finding volunteer opportunities with organizations whose missions that I really care about. I mean, for a little while, I was going to a church in Philly. I haven't because of COVID, but it was like a bilingual church because I also speak Spanish. And so being in a space that, you know, was bilingual also meant it opened doors to many different communities in a really diverse like age range too of people in the city, which helped me to just like learn a lot more. I think thinking about friendship in a lot bigger terms and like much more broadly can be helpful, especially in the adult world. Like people don't have to be exactly your age. They don't have to be exactly in your job. They don't have to be your gender or your sexual orientation. They don't have to be your religion. Like there's so many ways to think about diversity of friendship, and especially when it comes to race, I think it's important to exactly like bring it back to the poem, to be aware of it, but to not fixate on that. Like it's really harmful to like have token friends. That's not okay.
Yeah.
You want it, like it needs to be really organic, and if that comes from the heart, I think, of like asking really good questions and just like really getting to know somebody, I think you can't go wrong there. But it's definitely, you have to just check yourself and continue to be learning and like taking those baby steps. But there's just like not any excuses anymore, so just like do it. I guess is what I would say. And you're probably, I think too, for like recent college graduates, there's probably a lot more people than you would think in your network. I'm just thinking about like all the little, like not little, but like I think of like my Lucy babies and all the people that I know from my Lehigh community, and how interconnected that community was. You know, the good ones, the ones who cared. There's probably more people than you realize, like connections that you can jump into and like grow from. That's all.
Yeah, definitely don't tokenize. So don't try to be friends with someone because they are someone outside of your race. Like, just like Chelsea said, it's very circumstantial. So place yourselves in different surroundings where it will be more diverse, and just make friends the way you make friends. Like, hi, hello, how are you? What do you like to do? What's your favorite TV show? Like things like that. Like it's, and I think another thing is like you said, there's no more excuses anymore. So like if you are someone that wants to diversify your social circle, start to do the work right now so that you're not harming someone else in the future that could be your friend. So like being anti-racist, learning about different cultures and communities outside of your own, just diversifying what you watch on TV and like who you get your news from, and like not just focusing on US news. Like look outside of this country, please, because like, we Americans tend to just focus on ourselves. But yeah, like do that work right now so that like, I mean, it's also they're just like more fun things to do. Like I don't know, it just makes life more lively and like less boring, and like you're not stuck doing the same things that you've been doing your whole life. Like there's some spontaneity and like fun.
I would also mention for the people who's it's hard to make real life friends, IRL, as the internet would say. I know it's hard, like people with social anxiety or anxieties in general, or not how to pronounce it, but agoraphobia, I believe it is.
Agoraphobia.
I would also surround yourself with good, diverse media and good content, good influential content creators, people of color who create that good content for you. And then because you'll find fans of that content, and then that's how you bond over the same interests, and you can take that relationship further and become friends. There's all sorts of different places on the internet you can relate to and connect with, when it's especially hard right now. But of course, be safe. You know, the internet, just of course, be safe. But yeah, I just surround myself with good, influential content stuff. Good gamers. There's lots of people of color gamers out there creating content. There's drag queen gamers out there who make awesome content. It's amazingly funny. You know, it's, you have to put yourself into that, out of your comfort zone. You have to. And like speaking from like my own thing of just doing it, even though my stomach hurts and like my palms are sweaty and I'm like fidgety. Push yourself to say hi to that person. Push yourself to send that message to that person. Yeah, and then if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. Like,
Yeah,
you'll be fine.
Their loss.
Yeah.
Oh, so like any friendship takes like building trust, and like you're not going to be best friends with the person after you say hi the first time. Like, and also like if you're not a person of color, like if you're white, you're not going to talk about like these issues right away with people that aren't like your close friends. So don't force it. And then also be prepared to like, especially if you're white, like be prepared to be challenged if you say something insensitive or wrong, and like stop trying to achieve perfection. None of us are perfect. Everyone's human. We all make mistakes. People say insensitive things, not realizing that they're saying it. So like acknowledge and apologize and move forward. Because that's really it. That's like a lot of times that's really it. Like it doesn't have to be a deeper thing. It's just acknowledge that you said something and continue. Apologize and continue, and like take active steps to like not do it again. Like Kacie said earlier, like she notices things and then she's like, okay, let me not do that. And then if I hear it from someone else, I'm also going to call them out on it. And I know everyone's at different stages and levels on like how they can call out other people, but like at least for yourself, taking those steps too. So we're gonna play a little game before we close out. And this is just like who's most likely to game. This could make or break us, but I don't think so. I think we'll be fine. And I'm just gonna say who's most likely to something, and just like think, like try not to think too hard into it. Like just like knowing each other, knowing yourself. You can say yourself too if you feel like that's me. Like
I hope these are spicy.
I feel like, I mean, I try not to make it too spicy, you know, it's still family friendly. Like but I tried to make it like exciting, not like basic, like who's most likely to blah blah blah. I that was great, right? Anyways,
let's just superlatives.
Let's go.
Mine was side note, my superlative.
What were your senior superlatives?
I was dance machine.
Okay.
That's fun.
That still rings true.
It still rings true.
That's accurate.
You know what mine was?
My school was too small for that.
You didn't have them, Sarah.
What was yours, Kacie?
Mine was most likely to be famous.
Okay, that's the first question I had.
Really? Well,
obviously it's Kacie.
it was so weird though. Because I don't know that anything about myself in high school like impressed upon people that like I was seeking fame and a high profile life. I am not famous yet, for anyone who was wondering. But it was very weird. Like, I don't know what I would be famous for.
So I guess that was high school Kacie. But like,
right,
for us, like, who is most likely to become famous?
Dabney.
Dabney.
Yeah.
Dabney.
Honestly, yes, because if I
Dabney selected this question knowing herself would be.
No, I was just curious.
Switch it up.
Self-flattery.
I see you, Dabney.
Just for a lot of reasons. One, like not only because I started the podcast, but two, like I
know yourself. I mean,
when I was little, I wanted to be on Broadway so bad. So like that was always like a possibility. Like if someone tomorrow tells me that I could be in like this, not because I want to be famous, but because I like theater and acting and like performing for people. But if someone told me like you're going to be on Broadway tomorrow, I'd be like, dip everything else I was doing, and I'm going to go be on Broadway.
Even if the president was like, Dabney, you got the job, come work for me, you'd be like, bye, Broadway.
Be like, Joe, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'd be like, sorry, Joe, but Broadway.
Send Kamala my regards.
Yeah, I'll be like, I'll be back
some
after.
tickets. I'll send you some free tickets.
Exactly.
Send you Hamilton tickets.
But actually,
that'd be amazing.
That would be so. Yeah. Okay. Next one is
love it.
Who would be the first to take a trip around the world?
Chelsea.
I feel like Chelsea.
I'll take it. I was gonna say me or Dabney, so yeah, I'll take it.
I like me or you, but I'm not gonna say me again. I'm gonna say Chelsea. All right, next question. Who's most likely to do something embarrassing in public? I'm going to say Sarah.
Sarah.
She has.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Literally on the daily. Yeah, 2 days ago in Trader Joe's. The last week when I was outside, just like I probably moved and was like, oh, why did I do that? Like cringe. So yeah.
I just think of,
What is
I don't
that
know.
story?
You see? Yeah, like I
I
feel
think
like
she did
embarrassed
something
myself.
embarrassing.
I guess.
Yeah, and it doesn't
But,
even
like,
matter
we
what it
weren't
was.
there.
It was embarrassing.
I feel like you had to be there kind of moment for that. Right, Sarah? But like
Yeah, right.
Sarah,
Okay.
Sarah, I feel like we've had a lot of moments where either traveling or just being out and about with Sarah where we had to like pull her back.
Yeah.
Like, okay,
Rein her
Sarah, rein her in.
You never know what you're gonna get with Sarah. I think that's
That's what, keeps this friendship spicy.
Yeah.
right.
Mhm. Next question. Who's most likely to try something new at a restaurant?
Kacie.
I feel like Kacie too.
Or Chelsea. Chelsea's pretty adventurous.
I feel
I
like
do
all
love
of us would, but I
Yeah.
feel like
We all are.
Casey's the most adventurous, I feel like, chef out of all of us. Like,
Thank
you're always
you.
trying new things.
Mm-hmm.
At least
I've been
that's-
off
I
my
would
game
say that
recently,
too.
though.
Okay.
and I would say she's more likely to like own a restaurant too, if we're gonna.
Oh my God, the flattery. Thank you. Let me just abandon my career and do that.
Who's most likely to own their own company, whatever that may be? Own
Angel.
a company.
Dabney?
Angel. I could see Angel, even though Dabney's talked about it a lot. I could see Angel doing it on the low. She just
Have
like,
I?
Hey guys, I am a
Maybe.
CEO.
I agree.
Have I talked about it?
So-
What?
Dabney's
Bring
gonna
it
have
up.
an
NGO.
nonprofit.
Yeah.
Dabney's gonna have an
Oh.
NGO.
Yeah.
Right. I just think of company, I think of like selling something.
Yeah.
Mm.
We gotta make money in the nonprofit world. It's a business. It's all
True.
True. You gotta pay your
Yeah.
workers.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I feel like Angel would have, I feel like most likely to have like an Etsy
Mm.
shop,
Mhm.
like on
I
the
just
DL.
think of her brain, like her brain. She's probably like 3 weeks after the fact. They're like, hey guys,
Oh
just
my
want to let
God.
you know, this is what's happening in my life.
She would tell
That's
us
it.
after the fact.
And it's
Yeah,
like, okay,
yeah.
do we get a cut of the like?
She'd
do
be
we
like,
get
yeah, but
something,
also
Get
like
a
a
cut.
little, just maybe like a nice bag, like
Discount, family friend discount. That'd be my first question. I'd be like, so
Yeah.
next one. Who's most likely to cry during a movie?
Sarah.
Me.
Yeah. Sarah.
Sarah cries.
Sarah.
We try to make
Without-
Sarah cry. That's the goal. When we give Sarah a gift, I feel like it's good if she cries, but she
Mhm.
cries easily. So
Yeah.
it's not hard.
I've been working on it. I just want to say.
All right, next one. Who's most likely to run for office? I'm gonna say Kacie. It's not me.
It's literally you, Dabney.
Yeah,
It's
Dabney.
literally you.
Okay, just-
again, this is a
It could
question.
be either.
Yeah, Dabney or Kacie.
I feel like why it's not me. It's because I love policy, but you will never catch me. I've said this before. Like people have been like,
Yeah, you
president, and I'm like, no,
That's what you said.
no.
You're
You
like
said that
Michelle.
before.
Michelle
Yeah.
knows.
She's like,
exactly.
nah, this life ain't
Yeah.
for me.
Like,
Michelle
I
Obama
wouldn't-
for
I would
everyone
put none of
listening.
those.
I love AOC. Like I love all these people. Like Ayanna Presley. Like Cori Bush. Shout out to them. Not that they're listening, but I love
The
them.
squad that our squad aspires to
Mhm.
be.
Yes.
I would want to work for them. I would not want to
Mhm.
be them.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I agree
So that's
with
why I
it.
say Kacie, because I feel like, I feel like for Kacie, it would be something that you didn't plan on doing. Like that wasn't like your life plan, but like you got super heated and you were just like, I'm just gonna do it.
That tracks. That sounds like me.
And like one night you just like go to register to run, and like that's what happens. And then like now you're running.
And then you're our
for
first woman
office.
president
Yeah.
at the end.
Whoa.
Well, we definitely need one.
Hopefully-
more.
yeah, I was like, hopefully we get-
not by
well,
then.
well, you're 25.
Mhm.
That's only a
10
decade.
years.
10 more.
Yeah.
But she can still run for office, just not president.
Maybe like local government. Like I'll be on like the school board or something.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Nice.
Like you would just get so like passionate about something, and you would just like go on your laptop and just sign up, and then you're
Yeah.
like, well, I guess I'm doing this, and
Yeah.
that's how your campaign would start. And the last one, this is my favorite one, but who's most likely? Okay, except for Kacie, it's definitely not Kacie.
Keep going.
Okay.
Wow, I need to know.
We watch a lot of reality TV, but who's the most
Dabney.
likely to be on a show?
Dabney.
I feel like to sign. I feel like,
but like to kind of,
I
to
wouldn't
both,
want
like,
anybody on that show.
I feel like Dabney would like on one hand try to undermine it, but on the other hand be like, well, if I actually fell in love, that'd be great. But she would like,
it's
not let
Dabney.
anything slide.
I feel like I
yeah.
could see Angel wouldn't sign up for herself. Angel, it would be like
sign you up.
Yeah, Angel would sign me up.
I think
Oh my God, I would.
Angel would like lose all in, like, even if she showed up for one day, she'd be like, nah, out of here. I would like giggle too much and just laugh a lot at everything and not be able to take it seriously. I think Sarah would get mad and like curse people out. And I think Dabney would be able to do it. Kacie, you just, your brain would leave the building like the first.
You didn't even
I
sign up.
would destroy the show from the inside out. It would be the last season of The Bachelorette ever.
You'd be like Claire.
I would just, from the inside out, I would destroy the show.
It'd be a beautiful thing to watch.
I feel like Chelsea would actually be like a front runner. Like,
yeah.
and for Bachelor standards, I feel like Chelsea could like actually win.
I would be too nice.
She'd be strategic too.
No,
Chelsea would be too nice, I think.
I wouldn't fight for
way
time.
too
I
nice.
wouldn't elbow people out to get my time. And then
no, but that's why I could. You would be the type.
Would be a
like,
fan favorite.
You would be a fan favorite
like
just because you're. Yeah, you would be like Abigail.
I don't know who that is.
It's okay. It's not relevant.
It's fine.
I feel like Chelsea would be like, she doesn't talk a lot, but the lead likes her, so that's why she stays.
Chelsea's just there for the wine.
But then at the end, she realizes she's not ready to get married right away and bounces. That's what Chelsea would do.
That's true.
Because Chelsea would be like, wait, but this is an actual life commitment.
I'm off to get my MPH. This has been nice. I appreciated your company.
Goodbye. And that's
I would
what
also
Chelsea
like
would
to say.
Well, that's it. You're getting a glimpse into our relationship. I just want to thank you guys so much for being.
Says you.
Okay.
Anyways, I just want to thank you guys so much for being here. I appreciate you all. I love y'all so much.
Yeah,
and
I love you too.
Yeah. For Dabney's debrief this week, a major takeaway for me is that your friends are not only a reflection of how you perceive the world, but also how you are perceived by the world. And so they reflect your core beliefs, attitudes, and thoughts. And if they're good friends, they'll challenge you to become a better version of yourself. And I'm not saying that you have to be exactly in terms of personality like your friends, but thinking about your values, they reflect your values. And so if you have really great friends, they will always push you, hold you accountable, and challenge you to become, again, a better version of yourself. So if you're someone who wants to make a difference and create a more just, equitable, and inclusive society, start with your friends, because that's a choice you actively get to make, especially once you're an adult. And so for Dabney's debrief, the question, or really the reflection I pose to you is, I challenge you to look around, see who your friends are, and ask yourself if those people reflect qualities that you want to be associated with, values that you want to be associated with. And now remember, I'm talking about your closest friends. I'm talking about people you've either had or will have in your wedding party. And I'm not saying to chuck anyone, but just to think more deeply about your friendships. And again, thinking about, I guess, drawing back to the first episode, how do you want to show up in the world? And your friends are included in that. As much as you don't think they are, they really are. So yeah, I hope you all enjoyed this episode, got a little sneak peek on my relationships and my friendships and how I try to navigate those, especially with my best friends from college. And I'll see you next week. Thank you for listening to today's episode. For links and resources, check out the episode notes. If you liked what you heard, help your girl out by leaving a 5-star rating and a review. For more content and updates, follow the show's Insta at @Uplift_podcast. And spread the word by telling your friends and sharing on social media. Subscribe to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening right now. For any questions or business inquiries, you can email me at theupliftpodcast1@gmail.com. This was The Uplift with Dabney Brice. See you next time.